Volvo Penta 4.3 GL steering actuator leak. I'm going to try to take out the steering actuator and do this fix that Wayne the boat guy and Pharmacide and all the good people at the Hull Truth have gone on about. I got my bucket of tools, thanks Wayne for the tip. Got my workman's friend on so that I can clean up more easily afterwards. I'm going to start by looking around to make sure the leak really is coming from the steering actuator, because I think it is, but I was not able to confirm it completely. Here's one good tip. I was out, heard the steering pump out on the water, heard the steering pump start to whine, and had power steering fluid in the bilge. So to confirm the whine was only that, I just popped the belt. You see the power steering belt hanging there and not driving the power steering pump. That means I still have manual steering, just the power steering's out. And when I popped that off and then restarted the engine, the whine went away. So definitely the whine was coming from the power steering pump. And the last couple trips out, I just ran it like this with manual steering. You got to be a little extra slow and careful, but it works fine. And so now at the end of the season, I'm going to take this thing out and try to deal with it. Let's first see if we can find the leak, confirm the source. Yeah. So, following all those parts back, I felt underneath them all. It was dry. There was maybe one drop up here at the pump. The rest of everything was dry through the cooler, through the hoses, the fittings. On the bottom of this pivot nut here, underneath the actuator, right where everybody says it loves to leak, that's where I found the fluid. So I think that confirms it's the actuator. I didn't even need to push the steering back and forth for a while to see if I'd push any more fluid out. That's the only spot that's actually wet. So I'm going to be taking off the exhaust elbow here so I can get at this thing better. The instructions on the Hull Truth site said take off these two hose clamps, and then also the two hose clamps at the bottom of the elbow, and that thing should come off. Let's see how that goes. Bottom one's going to be a little harder to get to. Down in there. Wait. This, or is it at the bottom of that? I'm going to take a look. The posting at the Hull Truth said to take this rubber boot off after the elbow, but the hose clamps for that are way back in here and I can't really get to them, so I'm going to take these off. And from there we'll see if I need to take off more. Okay, got these two hose clamps off the bottom part. Now I'm going to try to wiggle this thing apart out from here. Hopefully I can loosen the edge without tearing this thing. Otherwise I'll have to buy a new one. It's not a very sharp screwdriver. I picked my oldest, bluntest screwdriver and tried to pry it off. Well, after a good amount of wrestling, this hasn't come out yet. And I'm contemplating, I've been wondering how much rust and obstruction I have inside this exhaust risers and manifolds. So I'm wondering, with these 4 bolts, maybe I can just knock this off of here. I would need a new gasket then, but it would definitely help this thing get free. So I think I'm gonna, in for a dime, in for a dollar, take this off. Fun. I looked at that nut, looked at my socket set, grabbed a socket and tried it. It was the right one the first time. That was something my dad could always do, but I couldn't. But now I did. Maybe I learned something. Maybe what I didn't learn, Dad, was how to not tear apart things that I shouldn't be. And need my bigger breaker bar. Yeah, all 4. Now these are now off, so I can get that loose. Start to twist that. Now this is all working around a lot more. If I can get it out. This bolt up here saved me from myself. It is so tight. I decided to stop trying to break it loose, and I realized there's inspection ports on this manifold exhaust riser, so I just look at it through those, satisfy my curiosity. A little less boat yoga. Come on, you. There we go. The elbow is now loose. Now I can get this rubber boot off. And my 4 hose clamps. So, this is the boot that came off. I don't remember which one was on the front, but maybe it doesn't matter. The trick to getting it loose was to break all this, break the seal. So get that screwdriver in there and pry to break where it was calcified on. My exhaust elbow here. Okay. Let's see what kind of view we have. Alright, now I can actually see the hydraulic connections. The question is, do I need to take this bottom rubber boot off? I think no, I think I can work right around it. So the fact that those hose clamps are way back there where I can't get to them, somebody put them on when the engine was out, I'm sure. It's no problem. I'm going to work on getting the actuator out now. First step, according to my C-Lock manual, is disconnect the steering cable, starting with this cotter pin and pin on the far right hand side. Let's see if we can get a look at it. And there's a cotter pin, this one. Yeah, well, it doesn't seem too bad. This one came out, didn't even lose it. And this pin should come out. Yes. Now, for this one, we're going to have to hold here with one wrench, turn here with the other. Say what you like about adjustable wrenches, this is the job for them. I got my 2 wrenches on. broke loose. And this is the part where if taking out my batteries were easier, it would have saved me some room here. But they're not. So I'm working around the battery cables. This thing is still working pretty hard. There we go, it starts to ease up. That might be loose. I made some nasty crunching noises for a while, but now it's going easier. The easiest thing actually is to get the big wrench on that nut and then pull on this one to make it go loose. Put this back up to get the next plate. And this is the steering rod. You just slide it all the way out of there. Let it rest here. Okay, so next we're going to put a pan underneath this to catch the hydraulic fluid and take off. This is the high pressure input and this is the low pressure return, I believe. Yeah. Being careful here as I take this off not to mess up those threads. It's pretty deeply threaded, so it doesn't leak. I don't want to have it go back in badly. No fluid there. Maybe enough of it leaked that nothing wants to come out. I'll try the high pressure side now. Oh, you're supposed to keep these from getting dirt in them, so let me put that back together for a second while I get some masking tape or painter's tape or something to seal up those holes. Taped up the little one. Now working to break open the big one. The Seal-Lock book says to use a flare wrench on these. Gets a nicer, more complete grip on the nut. But they're not that tight, so I really don't think that this kind of wrench, this regular open-end wrench, is a problem for it. So, could be famous last words. And I'll try to catch this. Any fluid here. Very little. Like I said, it probably all leaked out already. On you. Now we've got a cotter pin down in there to take out. You can sort of see it, shouldn't be too bad. We've got two here. This is that swivel point. This one on top should be easy. There's one underneath there. Working on that cotter pin. Here's an accidental tip. I found that if you leave your roll of Scotch tape here, then this thing won't poke you in the belly and tear your shirt like Wayne was having happen to him. Accidental tip. Okay, I'm gonna keep working on this little cotter pin at the bottom there. I think I've bent it straight, but it's still not coming out. So rummaging around the house, we found a little dentist mirror thing that came with my kids' braces. Let's see if we can get a look here. That's harder than it should have been. Well, this should never just come out. Yeah. The larger clevis pin that the hydraulic connects with. The first one we took out was the one that the steering cable connects with for manual backup steering. Next job here, now that those are loose, is this and this. These two sets of cotter pins on those bolts for the pivot point. Okay. So that cotter pin kept that top bolt from turning out. With the bottom pin, this bolt looks like it'd be so easy, and it's not. Cannot break it loose. I'm going to try some penetrating oil and come back to it. Well, after some penetrating oil, tapping, didn't even have to heat it yet. I got this top bolt to where I can get it loose. But the bottom one's worrying me. Like, if the top one's is hard to get out, how am I ever going to get the bottom one? Top bolt, it came out with some kind of granular silvery stuff. I don't know if that's part of the seals that came off or where that's coming from, but it's a little weird. There's also marks on the side of this bolt where the cotter pin goes past. I think it's probably meant to go there. That one looks like it's machined. This one's just a scar over here. Could be that wherever you slide it in, as the mechanism works its way back and forth, it just digs in over time. Either way, it came out. Top one. It's got a hole all the way through, which I think is good for this, getting penetrating oil down in there. We'll see about the bottom. You get a wrench down in there with any swing. So this is the next thing I've tried. This is the raw water intake hose, where it goes into the cooler. So I've taken that off. I think just pushing it up might be enough to find some swing. Let's try that. Okay, a friend had a 15/16 socket, so I'm going to try this. So I'm able to get this bottom nut off without taking off this rubber boot. In fact, taking that off would not have helped. The secret is a universal joint drive to add to the socket, and to get a little extra room on the handle here, I did have to take off that raw water intake hose to get a little swinging room. The bottom one, it also has this powdery stuff, which I'm now figuring out is bits of the cotter pin. As it slides back and forth on that pivot, it's going to just eat up little bits of that cotter pin, so not a problem. And it's now out. Now I will go follow the instructions from the Hull Truth site and the other YouTube guy. So I'll be working on those seals, and as usual, the boat scored one bite. Not a big cut.